So far, we've seen how to apply an effect to an individual track, and we did it on track 3, our isolated vocal file, and that works great for any event on that track, which means if I've got multiple events on one track, then any effect that I add to that track will affect every event. Our compressor, for example, will compress every single event on track 3. At the moment, we've only got one event on track 3, but if we'd got multiple events, well, that compressor, using the exact same settings, will compress every event in the same way. Now, in this tutorial, I want to look at something called the plugin chooser, which allows us to add different effects in a chain to our track. And in the next tutorial, I'm going to look at adding an effect on a track, but not to the track. I want to look at adding an effect just to a single event on a track. So by adding something like EQ, which is what we're going to do in the next tutorial, I can adjust the EQ setting for just one event, leaving every other event on that track intact. Anyway, getting back to where we were, as a reminder, here is our track 3, and we added a compressor to this. If we want to see this compressor, maybe we want to change its parameters, well, we need to click here, the Effects button, to open up our Audio Track Effects user interface. And there is our compressor. As you can see, it's in a chain of 3 effects at the moment, but the first 2 aren't activated, i.e. the track noise gate and the track EQ are both unchecked. They're still in the chain, but they're not making any difference to our sound because they're unchecked. So really, I may as well remove them. And here's what we do when we do want to remove an effect. I'll select my noise gate first of all, and then right click on it. And then it's simple enough. Run down to there where it says remove. And now that's not in our effects chain for this track. I'll do the same thing for the EQ. I'll right click and run down to remove. And so therefore we're just left with our compressor in our chain, a chain of 1 now. Incidentally, to be able to use this plugin chooser effectively and quickly, notice the buttons at the top right of the effect chain user interface. We've got plugin chain, we'll use that in a second. We've also got remove selected plugin, and by clicking on that, that would have done effectively what we've just done when we removed our noise gate and EQ. And we've also got configure effects automation. We're not going to look at that in this tutorial, but that would allow us to automate the parameters of an effect over time. Anyway, if you want to add to your existing chain, click on this first button, the plugin chain, and now you'll see this list of available plugins. Some are Sony plugins, some are third-party plugins. And here, they're all under our main audio category. So let's try this out. Let's choose one to use. Now what I'm about to do isn't going to work. I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to choose noise gate and then click on OK. See what I mean? It's not been added. And that's the operative word. It's not been added because all we did was select it. We didn't add it to our chain. So let's look at what we do have to do to make sure this works. Click on your Add button once more to see your plugin chooser user interface again, and then choose the effect that you want to use. I'll choose Noise Gate, and then you need to click on the third button down here on the right, where it says Add. Okay, and now we see it. It's been added to our plugin chain. We have the compressor first, and then now, because we've just added it, we now see our noise gate. So I'll OK this, and there you go. You now see it added in your audio track effects, waiting for you to set its parameters. Now I don't really want to use it, so I'm going to remove it another way. Click on the second button along here to remove it from our chain. This Remove Selected Plugin button, and therefore we're now just left with our compressor. And I'll click my cross here to close. Okay, now I'm going to finish up here for this tutorial. Now we've had a quick look at the plugin chooser and what's important about it in terms of when we want to add something to our chain. In the next tutorial, as I alluded to at the beginning of this tutorial, we're going to look at adding an effect not to the whole track as we have done here, but to an individual element or an individual event on that track.